All right, great to be back here. Great to be back here on Veterans Day, and certainly want to acknowledge our appreciation for all the veterans out there, all the people that have served our country. We've got a good chance over the years to have many veterans interact with our team, and I think there's a lot of parallels that can be drawn between football and the military. So we've really benefited from that, but just want to make sure I extend our gratitude in that regard. With Saturday's game, I think it looked as we reviewed it much like it felt. We played really well. We played fast. I thought both sides of the ball was much more detailed than maybe the previous week, and that showed up in just our execution. Anytime you can run the ball for over 500 yards, it's not easy to do, and that's a credit to our offensive line. It's a credit to all the ball carriers. I think it's certainly a credit to our coaching staff on that side of the ball. Really forcing defenses to have to defend quite a bit, and then ultimately we didn't have to throw the ball all too much, but made some plays on the passing side of things as well. And then defensively, those first couple drives we gave up a couple first downs, but really limited the big play opportunities for Sac State, and put a lot of pressure on a young quarterback early on in that game, and make them as one-dimensional as we possibly could, and that made it real challenging for them. So in another game where we got a chance to get a lot of guys in the game, and like any one of those opportunities before us, we're going to continue to count on backups and second and third teamers to continue to make their way, and whatever that's going to mean down the stretch here, those reps continue to be very valuable. And I thought, both those groups, the offense scoring once and the defense giving up to score, but then really bouncing back and keeping them out of the end zone after that, I think we were pleased with their efforts as well. So, this sets up this game, this week, two teams unbeaten in conference play, getting a chance to face off down in Davis. Got a lot of respect for that program, not only what they've done this year, but over time. A lot of familiarity with Davis going back to my time at North Dakota State. We've only played them once in my time here, but certainly have a lot of respect for what that program's done over the years. And this team in particular has put themselves in this position because they're playing well on offense and they're playing well on defense, and it's really that simple. They've found ways to control the line of scrimmage. I think in particular on Saturday night in the second half they did that, and got a big win. Offensively, Miles Hastings is a vet. He's played a lot of football, and it appears that he's playing his best football right now. He's dang near 70% completion, over 3,000 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, and really does a good job of spreading it around. He looks like a polished vet, a guy that just gets rid of the ball, knows where to go, doesn't make a lot of bad plays. I guess that's as good of a way I could explain it. And they do a really good job of playing to his strengths of quick release, accuracy. He can get the ball downfield as well. And he's got weapons, obviously, on the other end, led by Lane Larson. Over 1,500 total yards right now. I think 16 TDs, 40 catches. I think that's the one thing. So he's got over 250 touches. Our highest number is, I think Scottrade has 158 carries. So that's a significant difference from how they're leaning on him. But just finding different ways to get him involved. And he'll line up at Wildcat. He's thrown the ball a few times. He's really effective guy in so many different ways. He can run between the tackles. He's, I think, most dangerous when they do get him in space, and they do that, through the running game, and quite often in the pass game as well. But he's not their only weapon. For, I think, versatile receivers that all have over 25 catches, tight ends that they're using in a lot of different ways. So a lot of different, pieces to the puzzle offensively for him. You'd like to think it was just Hastings and Larson, but it's much more than that. And they're very creative offensively. they do what they do, but they find wrinkles each and every week. Whether it's trick plays or different ways to use Larison at the wildcat position, Tompkins maybe at the wildcat position. So credit to what they've been able to do offensively, but just with that offense, they wouldn't be in this position. Defensively, they've been really consistent, really good, in particular against the run. So that says, they're playing well up front. They're big. And I think it's a defense that, I wouldn't pull out any one or two individuals. And that's a credit to what they're doing. They play a lot of guys. They have good size up front. They're active. They tackle well, and they got good coverage ability at the same time. So something's going to have to give. I think they're giving up, it's 118 yards rushing, 3.6 yards per rush. We average 7.2 yards per rush. So obviously that piece of our offense and our ability to run the football versus their defense and their ability to stop it will be critical. They've taken the ball away a significant amount this year, and that's going to obviously play a big piece in how this game all goes on Saturday. So important week of prep in front of us. Broken record, but we've really lived in the week that we're in. Lived in the opponent that we're facing each week, and no different this week. And that's really the key. We can't all of a sudden try to think we need to change things this week. Stick to a similar script, really prepare well, and then go out and know that we have to play really well against a really good football team, a well-coached football team on Saturday. So really looking forward to the opportunity. And, on the health side, I know we missed Brody on Saturday, but that was a long-term decision, meaning, he could have maybe went out there and played on Saturday and been partially effective. It's our hope that come next Saturday he's entirely effective. Otherwise, I think we got out of that game feeling pretty good about, again, our continued health for this part of the season. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
You mentioned Hastings and Larison, I guess, whether it was playing them 2 years ago or new head coach now, I guess, what are the differences maybe you see kind of holistically with that offense this season?
Well, I think there's plenty of similarities. Coach Plow wasn't there that year, but he had been there prior to. There was certainly overlap, and it was, Cody Hawkins was calling plays that year. A lot of the same types of things they're doing personnel-wise. There's certainly some overlap. I think their overall depth of guys they can get the ball to, I think, is more significant than it would have been a couple years back. Offensively, it does for them to start with the play of their offensive line. I think their offensive line, they've been able to roll with a pretty consistent group, and I think there's something to be said for that. So similarities, I think, but I think we've both evolved. And that's the one thing. We've followed them 3 times this season, Idaho, Portland, and Eastern. So we've seen a lot of their film and crossover, and what I see is a team that's continuing to get better, an offense that's continuing to get better. And that, to me, the noticeable piece is they continue to get better up front. And their ability to run the ball when they want to and then to stop it has been, I think, really improved through the course of the season.
3-3-5 mainly on defense?
I know that's how they're listed. I think they find themselves in the 4-down looks more, even though they're going to stand up. Their stud outside linebacker, he could just as well be a defensive end quite a bit. So multiple, I guess, but probably more in the realm of a team like us than the 3-3-5s that we've seen. I know that's how they're listed, but they're more of a 4-2-5, how I'd see it.
And then are they willing to be aggressive at kind of tendencies, I guess?
Yeah, I think they do a really good job of keeping on your toes. I think that multiple nature, not only in their fronts, but then it exists in their willingness to pressure. I think not crazy risk adverse on that side, but bring an edge guy, drop an end out, or drop the outside linebacker out, bring an inside backer. Really do a good job of mixing up their looks on 3rd down, mixing up their fronts, mixing up their coverages. So, and really, I think what you see is you gotta earn it against them, and that's the mark of a good defense. One that's going to give up some first downs, maybe give some yards here and there, but ultimately you're going to have to break them. You're going to have to really be consistent. And then their ability to take the ball away, I think, is probably beyond that rushing stat the most significant. They're 10 games in. And they, a couple critical interceptions the other night. The one in the end zone in the first half, and then the one after they, I think, took a 2-score lead. They get the next play, they get a pick. So, pressure-wise, they don't have a tremendous amount of sacks, but I think their ability to get pressure with just rushing 4 is there too.
You mentioned before how important the veterans, the 23 seniors on your team are in that consistent mindset you guys have. How much do you lean on them, or how important are they, especially in games like this?
Well, I think I like to think their sense of urgency continues to be at its peak, especially you get down to the wire here with 2 guaranteed games at this point, 2 regular season games at this point left. I think whether you like it or not, their days are winding down, but I think they certainly want to make it last as long as they can. So that impact and at the flip side, we got a really good group of second-year guys in particular that I think are making impacts all over our team. And, you see it within those position groups, those older guys, whether they're 5th or 6th-year guys, really, I think, continuing to bring those younger guys along. Because I think the improvement of that second-year group, has gone a long ways and will continue to. So I don't know that it's much different, but I think it continues to be impactful, and I think they continue to rise to the occasion as far as in games, because those are the moments that you can't script. You can't script the adversity that comes about in the course of a game, and I think it's when those guys hold themselves in a certain way, they don't panic, that it permeates through position groups and the offense and defense side. So, yeah, been really pleased with how consistent that group is, and that's certainly been our theme this year.
On the injury front, I guess I think you've been updated from Justice in the past. Is he still a ways away?
Well, fair question. I think Justice last week pushed it to maybe a different level. This week will be another opportunity to see how game ready he can get. I'm not saying starter ready necessarily, but can he be a guy that they could go into the game and be a pretty good percentage of himself. I think that remains to be seen, but I think a lot more realistic conversation this week than it's ever been before, in part because of the progress I think we felt he made last week.
And then speaking of seniors, Ryland has been such a big key to that defense. I guess, what have you seen from his progress kind of in your time here?
Well, a guy that's first and foremost, I think getting everything out of his ability. He's worked so hard, and he's, we got a lot of competitive guys, and he is right up there. And as a leader, I think that's where he's continued to grow. He probably, was the leader of that safety nickel, probably the DB group last year, but wasn't out in front, wasn't a captain. He was maybe the next guy that would have been up for that type of honor last year. But he's done a tremendous job in that role. And it's, I think he's your classic captain of a guy that has earned the respect in front of the title. So when you get to the point now where you're willing to say things, it's meaningful because you've been able to demonstrate who you are and how hard you work and how much you pour into it. So, and beyond that, he's a really good player. I think, a walk-on to a captain is this great story, but in the midst of it, he's become a really good player too. I think he's an all-conference level type of guy, and a real key to our success both against the run and the pass.
And you mentioned it there, but just him going from a walk-on to a captain. I guess, what does that kind of say about guys that can do that in this program and kind of work their way up?
Yeah, I think at the FCS level, the FBS level too, I suppose, but. In a state like Montana, there are going to be guys that, like Ryan was a high school quarterback, and his future was as a defensive player. And I'm thankful that the staff before we got here saw that in him and gave him that opportunity. Because, does the guy have the ability? Has he just not been put necessarily in that position at the high school level? And then more so does he see it? Does he see what he can become? And yeah, and we've had a good stretch of those guys, and we'll continue because, whether it's a guy playing out of position relative to his high school. I mean, they were playing in the right position in high school, but is he out of position relative to what he would play in college? Is he a guy that's a three-sport guy that hasn't maybe poured it all into football? I mean, there's those guys out there, and excited about the two captains in particular in this class, and Ort and Perkins, that have become what they've become. It was great to have Ty back here, Ty Okada, not a Montanan, but a Minnesotan that is very much the same type of story, and now he's in the NFL. And then the exciting thing, I think we have some young players, that are of the same, type of potential. And anytime you can have a story like that in front of you that's motivating, and we can bring Ty back here to speak to the team, and I think a lot of guys would look at Ty and still say he's not the most physically opposing guy, but if you put the work in, you can become what you believe you can become. So long answer to that, but I think those opportunities will continue to come here, and we're continually trying to seek those guys out that can make the best of the opportunity.
Speaking of Rylan, I'm doing a story on the Sentinel connection to Montana State. Can you just talk about being able to grab players kind of in the Grizzlies' backyard, but not only the number, but the quality of players being able to impact in multiple ways?
Yeah, I think no matter where we recruit in our state is really important. So don't shy away from the really good players in Missoula, just because it is just, the Sentinel's just down the street from campus there. Don't shy away from young men that might have parents that went to school there. Do our best to show them why our opportunity is what it is, and you hope they gravitate towards it. And then, you have some stories like Rylan, and Rylan leads into the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy, and then you've built something where, I think we have a significant bunch of Sentinel guys right now, and, that means a lot moving forward. I think it means a lot not only for those young men, but for their families as well. So, yeah, wherever the best players are in our state, we got to do our very best to, recruit them, get them interested in Bozeman and our university, our football program, and I think it goes without saying that group of Sentinel guys right now is making a huge impact.
Fans you've stressed that it's so important, especially on the road this year, making a difference. So, how would you like to kind of express them being there?
Yeah, I think we travel really well, and I think it doesn't take maybe the outside world's magnitude of this game to get them there. I think Davis is a pretty easy place for a lot of our fans to go to this time of year. So beyond the obvious, what's at stake in the game, I certainly hope that we have the type of crowd, if not a little bit more than we've had at all our different venues this year. And if they get their type of crowd they're looking for, I'll take our smaller version of that and see what they can do as far as rooting us on. So it should be a great game, and I certainly encourage all our fans that can to make it out to Davis.
It was like Davis has blocked a few kicks, a punt, and then I think given up a return touchdown. So anything special teams wise that kind of stood out to you when you guys watched?
Yeah, I think they're really solid, and I think I hope we're the same thing. We've had a couple games right now where there hasn't been much. I know we had the forced fumble out at Eastern, but we haven't had necessarily the big return or the block. But I know the blocks and the big returns we had early have paid dividends. Teams are doing everything they can to get the ball off, make it very confusing for us, and punt the ball away from Taco. So my point is, it's kind of the same thing goes for them. I think if you're put in a position where you need to punt, first and foremost, what are you dealing with as far as their scheme on the rush side, and then what is their returner capable of doing? And I think any good team that's in the position they are at 9-1, they've been able to make their fair share there. Playing at a lower elevation, I think in the kick kick return game might become a little bit more of a factor out there than it has been for much of our season. So, we are going to have to find a way to get an edge in the special teams side of things, and even if that's the slightest of an edge, I think sometimes winning in the special teams is just not losing. You don't give up a huge play. So, each week we pride ourselves in really being able to bottle them up, and then ideally we make a play of our own, and that's the ideal this week too.
And you mentioned kind of Marquis coming back or working his way back from injury a little bit, and then is it still Adam and Rohan face?
Yeah, I think Adam, now that he's back and healthy, I know he wasn't for a couple weeks. So as we got deeper at running back, the intention for quite some time has been to put Adam back there. I know early in the season we weren't positioned the same way, so that's getting Julius back and really being completely healthy at running back has allowed us to put Adam back there. Now we haven't had many opportunities, but the idea is, that's one more opportunity Adam can touch the ball. So I think the expectation going in this week, he would be back there. And, we got a unique situation with a guy like Rowe. We've played Jared back there a bunch. So if they do off kick our main returner, those guys can do something with the ball.
And just anything, you mentioned the turnovers in the Grizz game this last Saturday, but anything else maybe that stood out from that game about Davis that you hadn't seen before?
Well, I thought it was impressive how they just held their composure. I know there was a moment in that first half where all of a sudden, 1st and 10 becomes, 3rd and a lot, and so that was a bad series for them offensively, and they had a couple, I think it was 3 penalties in consecutive plays, but they really, I think they composed themselves. They were able to, I thought it was big they got that field goal right before the half. Montana went for it on 4th down about midfield, and they turned it into points, and you just sense going into half and then coming out of it, even though they gave up the go-ahead touchdown, that their confidence beyond that, maybe that rough patch, never wavered, and then it built, in a difficult place to play. So I think that's maybe the biggest thing you look at. Okay, here's a really veteran team, and it showed. They have a lot of experience throughout their team. A lot of guys that have been there for a long time, and that showed up more than any particular plays. I think they just they showed a real confidence and composure about themselves in that moment.
Coulter, do you have anything?
Hey, Coach. Thanks for taking a minute.
Yep.
You mentioned some of the Wildcat stuff they do, but they do a lot of stuff where they're snapping to a different player that isn't the quarterback, but basically he's on the field. So how complicated is that? And talk about getting the preparation.
Yeah, I think what you really got to diagnose is, to your point, if he's out there, what are their potential intentions? Where is he aligned? Because they will line him at receiver. They will align him in the backfield. If he's in the backfield, what does that mean? If he's at receiver, what have they done with him? Because he's generally speaking, when he's still out there, he's a real active participant. He's not just some guy they're sticking out on the sideline and he's just going to stand out there. So again, the creativity piece I think is significant. You get 10 games deep like this, they've done a lot of things, and at the same time you got to expect they're going to have something up their sleeve too that they haven't shown. So really, no matter what, being very disciplined, and I think that's something that our defensive players, our defensive staff has been by and large, and will have to be come Saturday, because I imagine we're going to see something we haven't. They're going to put all their pieces to the puzzle in a little bit different places, and got to be ready for just about anything.
Coach Blau was saying, this is the Big Sky Championship game. When this game gets the outside championship and the out game. So what do you think of that opportunity? Also, what do you think of that approach of sort of declaring how the game actually is?
Well, this is true. I guess whoever wins will have the outright bid. I know we all have another game left. So it's facts, I guess. So we want to get another win. Really that simple. And, winning the Big Sky Conference is a significant goal of ours. So with that on the line this weekend, along with the auto bid and all of that, yeah, it's another step in the direction of where we want to go. But at the same time, I told our guys this morning, it doesn't mean we need to try harder all of a sudden this weekend. We don't have to come up with a bunch of new guys or anything like that. We just have to, keep doing what we're doing and maybe just do it a little bit better. And I think that's been our goal. I look at just from the Eastern week to last week, I think we did things better. We showed signs of improvement here in November, and we need to continue to do that, because our intention is to play beyond November. And to do what you want to do then, you got to do what you need to do now. So we're really trying to stay pretty dang simple-minded. But, yeah, that's all on the line this week, and, 1-0 means good things. I haven't been in the new stadium. The last time I would have coached down there would have been 2006 in the old stadium, which I know this new one's quite an improvement. Yeah, and we've only played them the one time in 22, and then I would go back to, I think, probably 07 or whatever, that I would have coached against them at NDSU. Well, I think they're doing a few things. They have a big front, so that in itself is a challenge, and they pick and choose their times to move those guys, and it's all coordinated. It's not movement all of a sudden that they got a wide open gap. Some poor safety has all this space to fill. So beyond level one, those guys are where they're supposed to be, linebackers, safeties. They do a good job of bringing edge pressure, I think, in timely fashion that causes some problems. And they've tackled well. I know the particular thing that showed up, I thought, in the second half of that game on Saturday night is they got penetration in the backfield a bunch of times and made it really hard, for the backs to be able to have anywhere to go. So, so they're planning well and they're executing the plan well. And I that's how I would frame it. I don't think they depend on any one or two guys. It's really a pretty well-oiled machine around or across the board, and they cover well enough where they can put some pressure on their corners, in particular from time to time. But they haven't been this bunch that they got to do it because they're so committed and they're doing all kinds of crazy things that's a little bit out of character. That's typically what we've seen. And then all of a sudden, we hit all these long runs like we hit the other day because the team is doing things a little bit out of character and they don't get guys in gaps they're supposed to get in. So ideally we can create that situation, but they haven't presented that to this point. Yeah, it's impressive. And I think his familiarity as a former coach, and not too distant in that regard, and then a former player, I think that all makes a big difference. And you're taking over a familiar situation. Your players who have had a relative amount of success, gravitate towards him, I'm sure, immediately. Reason for success, I suppose, but you still got to go out and execute it. So credit to Coach Plow and his staff for pushing the right buttons, I guess. And that doesn't just start on an August Saturday. That I'm sure goes back to what they began through that transition back in January, and it certainly played out well for them at this point.